Today's conversation is with my friend and my colleague, Kandis James. Now, I'm going to do something I don't always do when introducing a guest, and I'm going to read you Kandis's bio because it's important to me that you know what a badass she is professionally and all of the experiences and accomplishments she has had in her professional life, because our conversation takes such an interesting deep dive into her personal experiences, including multiple near-death experiences. So I want you to go into this conversation knowing what an amazing person she is just in her job. With over 23 years of sales and marketing experience, Kandis James helps experts and coaches increase their sales call conversions so that they can spend more time doing the parts of the businesses that they love, which is helping people. And by the way, Kandis embodies the belief that there are no sleazy sales tactics or push energy required. Now, Kandis is somebody who I discovered through a work project. Kandis and I are both advisors in Nicole Culver's program, which is called Elevate. Nicole was one of my favorite guests on a previous episode of Hard Cost. So if you want to know more about that work, how I work with Nicole, Nicole's own fascinating origin story, you can go back and listen to that. But where I am a systems and communications advisor for Elevate clients, and I work directly with the Elevate team, Kandis is the sales advisor. And what that means is I have the benefit of getting to talk with Kandis multiple times every single week in our capacity as advisors. But it also gives me such an interesting window into learning more about her as a person. And I want you to know that despite that access and that opportunity, I have had to become friends with Kandis, including an in-person hang in Sedona at an Elevate client event. I was shocked, surprised, and stunned by some of what I learned about her and all of the things she has packed into her 40 years so far. You can probably, as you watch or listen to this episode, you will notice the number of times when I just felt my jaw drop because I could not believe that this person had had so many experiences and truly had come out with so much resilience and so much optimism and so much clarity in why she's here and why she continues to be here despite life's seemingly best efforts to try to stop that from happening. So I loved this conversation with Kandis. I had so many takeaways, some of them in real time. You'll hear me almost process some of what I learned and some of the aha moments and takeaways I had from Kandis in real time. And by the way, that experience is pretty much what everybody says about working with and learning from Kandis. Sometimes you're surprised at what she says. You're often moved. You are never just kind of complacent. There's always evoking something when you learn from Kandis or have the opportunity to be coached by Kandis, or thankfully, in my case, have become friends with Kandis as well. So with all of that said, I can't wait for you to learn more about my friend, Kandis James. Welcome, Kandis. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thank you. It's exciting to be here.
Oh my gosh. I have been very excited about this conversation because as I just shared in the intro, I have had the benefit of getting to know you because we work together in a community where you are the sales advisor, I'm the systems advisor. But I also feel like the beauty of that is I've gotten to learn so much about what motivates you and the heart and the empathy that you bring to the clients that you work with, certainly in our community and in your own life. And I have been feeling ever since I met you, like this is a woman where there are probably 10 lives trapped in this one life. And I was like, I don't know how many of Kandis's stories we can even get to in a short conversation, but I'm gonna go as deep as I can with you. So I'm really excited that you said yes.
All right, here we go. Sounds exciting.
No pressure.
No pressure at all. Yeah.
So we're going to get to all of the things that you do now. And I really would love for my listeners to hear your perspective on the marketplace for sales, the opportunities, what you have seen in the business. But before we get to any of that, I really want to talk about Kandis. So I know you now as this badass in a leather jacket who lovingly empowers people to make sales, to believe in themselves. But I also am having a little bit of a tough time picturing like 5, 8, and 12-year-old Kandis. So take me back. What is your origin story? Where did you come from? Who are you?
Oh man, 5, 8, and 12-year-old Kandis. That's hilarious. I was going to computer camp every summer and learning how to use things like hypercard animations on the old like Macs that were like, the super old ones. And I would be learning hypercard, and then I would go home with my cousin. He would come to computer camp with me. And we would go to computer camp, and then we would come home, and we would read Berenstain Bear books underneath the maple tree. And we would take turns reading to each other. The books changed over the years, but yeah, we spent a lot of time under the maple tree reading books back and forth and going to computer camp. I was very cool. In other words, it was very not nerdy.
Listen, you're joking, but somehow you made this thing that on paper sounds like it could be like an introverted kind of nerdy kid. You actually did make that sound cool. So when I say introverted, was that your perspective? Did you feel like your circles were close and selective, or were you friends with everybody, your cousin, the Berenstain Bears, and beyond?
Always friends with the Berenstain Bears.
Sure. They did have that tree house, and they were constantly telling you what to do and what not to do.
Right? Let this be a lesson to you. This is what you should not do. Anywho, yes. As a kid, I was really, really, really shy. Most people now, like looking at me these days, would not expect that necessarily. But as a kid, I was incredibly shy and just loved to kind of go inward and learn things. Like my cousin was the same way. We grew up together. So like his parents and my parents took us on like a trip to the lake. They got us a cottage, and they had to force me and my cousin to come outside because he was teaching me how to play chess inside. And I was like fully into it. I had to learn all the ins and outs of chess. And so they said, no, you have to come outside. We have this lake house. So we took the chessboard and we brought it to the beach. And then we just kept playing on the beach because I had to learn how to play chess. Once I'm in it, I'm in it. I got to figure it out.
That's so interesting. And so you're talking about your family. You mentioned your parents, your cousin. What was your family upbringing like? Was it just that kind of small? That was my experience. I grew up with my parents and my brother and not a lot of immediate family close by. And so a lot of what I learned as I got older was like how to expand those circles and how to create those relationships. But I didn't have that. And I'm always interested to hear, like, was it a messy big family? Tell me more about what that looked like for you.
I would say it's a bit more of a messy big family. Not in my, so I have one sister. She's technically a half sister. She's 7 years older. But we grew up together. Like we were one unit. But she was a lot older. So we weren't into the same things necessarily. And then my mom was a stay-at-home mom while my dad sold used cars. And so she ended up taking her sister's kids. If we weren't in school, her sister's kids were always, because she was a single mom. So those kids would come and stay. And there was 3 of them at the time. And then that family grew to 4 of them. And now you want to talk about messy family. Each 4 of those kids have like 2 or 3 or 4 of their own children. And but we were always the family that like at Thanksgiving or at Christmas or whatever, if one of us had a friend, which was often, one of us had a friend who had nowhere to go, all the friends would come. So it was very normal to have like a holiday dinner of like 40 or so people. And that just was normal growing up.
That's so interesting to hear that for you, that model of like everybody is welcome and everybody has a place at the table, that you saw that visually. I think that's so interesting. And it will, I think, come into even more perspective when we talk about how you support clients now and what you do now.
Mm-hmm.
But there has to be a bridge between the Berenstain Bears reading Kandis under the tree or playing chess at the beach to this badass in a leather jacket. So what happened after you got into your teenage years, into your young adulthood? Did you go to a traditional school program? Did you jump right into career? What did that look like?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me was, and you know, a lot of in the moment it sucked, but afterwards, I'm actually kind of grateful for it. Is like as soon as I hit grade 7, which I don't know what you guys call that in the USA, like junior high or something. But
Yeah.
anyways, as
By
soon
the
as
way,
I hit
if
grade,
people don't hear you say Zed in this interview, I will be disappointed because that's my favorite. That's when the Canada really pops out when I'm talking with you, and I love it.
okay, well, if we have to spell something, maybe they'll hear it. But yeah, so but basically in like grade 7, I went to school and I had always kind of been like bullied a little bit as a kid. I was heavier set. I was always reading books. In grade 2, I was at a grade 8 reading level. Like, so they always put me in the gifted programs. Like I had to go and do other stuff. So like, I wasn't really super cool. And then in grade 7, I actually switched schools because I had to, and got there. And like, I was cool all of a sudden. It was pretty rad. For like 2 months until everybody turned on me and just like made my life a living hell for the rest of the time. So to the point where like my mom would have to come and pick me up because being at school was like torture. And anyways, it was awful. But the point being is that I started to become defiant in that moment. Like I would wear a t-shirt to school that had Mickey Mouse doing something cool on it and they would make fun of me for it. So I would wear it again the next day. Like I just started becoming like, screw you, right? Like you're going to make fun of my shirt. Well, guess what? It's going on today and I'm going to wear another one tomorrow and it's going to be badass. So I just started kind of just being a bit defiant in that regard and you know, you develop a thick skin of like, it doesn't really matter what, you know, other people say. And so it kind of forces, you know, I think you can go either way. You can kind of retreat and go inside and really just try to be invisible, or someone like me, who's a bit like, screw you, becomes defiant and is just like, you know what? Okay, I'm going to put this out there. So I started to become a stronger version of myself just in and of that. And then I don't know, going through high school, I did all the maths, I did all the sciences, I had all of them. I didn't like it there either. People were bullied me there. So eventually I just quit day school, got a job, and finished in night school. So I didn't have to be with those people. And it was just like in and out, in and out. Like I didn't have to actually talk to people as much as in day school. So, you know, I just kind of started carving a weird path right from the beginning. Like my mom's like, why do you want to go to night school instead of regular school? I was like, 'cause I don't like it. Like I just started, you know, kind of following what's going to make me feel better. And then I went to school for marketing for a bit. I did a co-op program, which was fun. So 3 months of learning, 3 months of actually working in a business, which I thought was really valuable. I had some friends coming straight out of like full university. And like they'd never once done a marketing plan in real life. Right. So for me, it was really valuable to get that hands-on experience.
Yeah, I love that perspective, Kandis, because you know, I had a much more traditional route. I went to, you know, public school here in the US, but then did a 4-year private university. And exactly what you said is, and I was like in a pretty specific program for broadcast journalism. I knew exactly what the trade was when I came out. But short of some internships that I would do during the summer or like, you know, on weekends, I really came out after having invested so much time and money in this education. And I was like, okay, like it felt like starting from scratch. And I have not heard anyone share that perspective of like learning and then applying, learning and applying. And that's so interesting to me because one word that stands out to me as you were sharing this is, well, two. Number one, resilience, right? I don't know if you feel resilient, but there's something in your story that is like, oh, this happened and I could have gone 2 ways. I chose to just like carve my own path, be brave and say, they're going to do what they're going to do. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And I'm going to keep moving forward. That to me is resilience, but also just like that word defiance. I love it. I love it so much because it's not it's not a negative. Like the way that I interpreted it when you said it is like, no, I know what I'm supposed to do, and I'm going to buck the system that isn't serving me. And it doesn't mean that it has to hurt other people, right? I'm just
Mm-hmm.
defying what someone's telling me I can and cannot do, or what I'm expected to do. And I think there are a lot of people that are really fearful of like what will happen if I do this thing that they're telling me not to. Was there, when you talk about that, I find sometimes it's easy in reflection to say, oh, I was defiant and this is how it turned out. But in the moment, was there any trepidation? Did you have any of that fear or self-doubt, or were you always really like, this is the right path and I'm confident in it?
Oh, it's terrifying. It was terrifying. I knew that by doing those things, like if we go to grade school, right, doing those things was gonna get more bullying, right? But I wasn't gonna let you tell me who I should be and how I should dress, because it didn't matter. If I changed it from a Mickey Mouse t-shirt to a black t-shirt, they'd be like, oh, see, you don't, like, it just doesn't even matter, right? Like if they have their minds made up. Sorry. And then going into kind of college, and that sort of thing, like, I was kind of being pressured by everyone around me, all my friends, even my parents, like, go the regular route, like business at a university. And like that, just, I could just feel it. I've always kind of just gone with like that feeling inside, right? And just imagining sitting in those rooms for that long and like being in the whole university thing, like I couldn't do it. I said, I'll go to business, but I'm doing it my way. And I'm going to go to this like co-op program where I actually get to be hands-on. I learn way better doing it. I could read 25 books and you'll be like, hey, people get annoyed with me. We'll watch a movie. They're like, it'll be like the last 10 minutes. And I'm like, wait, I've seen this before. Like, I don't even know until the very end of the movie. And then I'm like, oh, I have seen this before. So like reading from a textbook isn't great. I think that's why I liked math, because you got to apply it right away, right? I'm much better at applications. So I knew that about myself. So that's what I did. And then after that, I went and got a job in an office and then flew to Thailand and lived abroad. And, you just got to keep life interesting.
That was such a yada, yada, yada Seinfeld moment where you're like, yeah, I did this thing. And then I went, and then, so we're not going to yada, 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 because what I have learned about you is you have this like nomadic spirit, right? Where like, I mean, I'm giving a summary now of what I know about you and you can fill in any gaps. But, I know that over the course of your career, you've had maybe a dozen of the most interesting job titles and roles and industries. You've traveled to all of these fascinating places, sometimes for like lengthy periods of time. Is it Wanderlust? Is it curiosity? Is it the travel? What is it about that type of lifestyle that appeals to you?
Yeah, it's definitely curiosity. Like when I was I started my own business teaching piano when I was 10. And then I also started a business babysitting, but I realized I don't like babysitting. So I started doing the marketing, and I would call the parents and stuff and get them organized, and my friend would babysit. And then we would split the money, which was great. And then as I got older, like I've always had a business on the side. I used to have I've always had more than one job. So starting at 15, I got a job in a grocery store, but I was also teaching piano. Then I switched to selling jeans. Then I also went to another store in the mall. I went to another one, and I did it kind of just because I was like, well, what's that like? What's that like? It's actually this like undying curiosity that sometimes is not in my favor. I had a large period of life where I was like wildly addicted to drugs and partying and doing all of that. Like that happened. And that was also part of, because I want to know what it feels like. I want to know what this job feels like. I want to know what that feels like. I want to know what it feels like to live in a country that doesn't speak the language. I want to know what it feels like to live in a hot country. I want to know what it feels like. Like I always am just so curious to understand what things feel like, and also like, what does it feel like to be a person of that, or like to understand the people. Like when I moved to Thailand for 5.5 years, it was like a cultural thing. It was a culture that spoke to me, and I just wanted to understand it and know it. And like, I'm just very open and receiving, and like very curious about how other people live their lives. And I think that has done really well for me as far as business and sales and things like that. Like it really does kind of come back to that. But yeah, it's really just like this curiosity. Like we're here on this planet, and I've died now almost 3 times, 3 near-death experiences, and like I'm still going. So it's like you just want to see. Like we're here for a short time. We're not guaranteed, and I just want to like see it all and feel it all and do it all. You know?
Yeah, you just unlock, like, this is why I love these conversations, Kandis, is you just created a bridge for me as somebody who's had the benefit of knowing you and having some of these conversations with you. Like, I just made a connection between these life experiences and the motivation and not necessarily the adrenaline, but like whatever the adrenaline, dopamine, like whatever it is that really fuels you, you have such an ability to connect that curiosity back to the sales process. So that's what we're going to talk about in a moment, but I can't let you say I had 3 near-death experiences and just yada, yada, yada that. So talk me through what happened and how did it change your perspective?
Yeah, so there was 3. The most recent one about 15 months ago. But the first one, I was 3. And I caught like a disease called epiglottitis. It's a virus. And it was just randomly flying through the air, I guess. And I caught it. We were all camping. Me and my cousins were there. And we were all camping. And then all of a sudden I started like doing this weird coughing thing. And I used to get croup when I was a kid. So my mom started treating it for how she'd been taught to treat croup. And that was not helping at all. So she ended up taking me to the hospital, and at the hospital, they treated me for really severe croup. And that it was just getting worse and worse and worse. So they had to send me by ambulance to the children's hospital, yada, yada, yada. Basically, they came out and told my parents, we found out what she has, and it's epiglottitis, and there is a 97% chance that she's going to die.
Oh my gosh.
Can you imagine as the parent?
I mean, I can. Unfortunately, I can imagine the absolute trauma and shock that they must have gone through.
Yeah. And they said, okay, so here's what we have to do. We're going to start by trying to she can't breathe because the epiglottis is the little thing on top of your air pipe. So it was swollen shut. So they said I couldn't breathe. So they were going to put something up my nose and down my throat to hook me up to a breathing machine. If that didn't work, they would have to cut a hole in my throat and in my neck and like stick it that way. And if that didn't work, well, time over, time out. So anyways, obviously I'm fine. So they figured out how to get it up the nose and down and hooked me up to a breathing machine. But I actually have like visions of watching myself out of body. And I still can remember them from that time because it was like wild. And for a long time, I just like remembered that vision. Like I can see it very, very clearly. And it wasn't until like maybe 3 years ago or so, I was watching some documentary on Gaia about the heart. And it was talking about all this stuff, and something that was said, I have no idea. It just triggered this whole thing. And all of a sudden, it wasn't just a scene anymore. It was a feeling. And the feeling was, I remembered how peaceful it was. And so I was able to then be like, oh, there's no fear in dying, which is really important because previous to that, so in between those 2 times, sorry, I kind of skipped a timeline. I almost died on a boat, and the boat almost capsized in the middle of Thailand waters. And so my body went into like basically shock and like shut down. And after that, I had PTSD. And then I was watching that thing on Gaia, and it showed me how peaceful it was. And I was like, oh my God, it doesn't even matter if we die. I mean, obviously I don't want to die, but there was just like this peacefulness and this ease. And that helped get rid of a lot of the PTSD that I was experiencing from the second one.
Wow. And you just walk around on the earth carrying these experiences with you. That's amazing to me. And so, okay, so you have this traumatic experience when you're a child that you now have these, I don't even know what it's called, like shadow memories, or, you know, these kind of more active memories or experiences from. Then you have this experience in Thailand. You mentioned a third experience.
Yeah, last year I was given a medication by a doctor which triggered a bunch of stuff in my body and basically created type 1 diabetes within 4 days. So my pancreas shut down. This was not something I was expecting. So ended up being rushed to the hospital in an ambulance. And I had, I think, oh gosh, I can't remember what it is. I don't know. There's like a blood pH. Let's call it 6.7. I don't really remember right now, but let's call it 6.7. Anything that or below is like 95% death. And I was at it. I'm like, why do I keep cutting things so close? My mom's just like, what is wrong with you? Could you stop? Like, could you just stop doing this stuff? I was like, I didn't mean to. But because I was like, my pancreas shut down very quickly. I was trying to do things without realizing that my pancreas was shut down. So my blood sugar was going crazy high, which caused blood acidity. So yeah, it almost shut down my organs. I would have either gone into a coma or whatever. And I was in the ER. They had me locked off in this little room, and I knew something was going wrong. I was in and out of consciousness, and I knew something was going wrong. And I ended up just like flagging someone down and being like, something's wrong. They're like, really? And then I hear him type on the computer. And all of a sudden he's like, shoot. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on this.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I was going to say, I bet he used some stronger language.
Yeah.
He was like,
shoot.
Holy shit, Kandis, we gotta hook you up with something.
All I heard was shit. And then I saw like 8 people around me just doing, I don't know what they were doing. And I passed out, and I woke up like many hours later in the hospital bed. But I was about to go into either a coma or death. So, but thankfully I flagged them down. It's amazing what your body does when you're in these like intense spots.
Yeah. So do you feel like the luckiest person for having survived? Do you feel unlucky because these keep happening to you? Does luck not factor in?
I don't think it's luck. It's like, more than anything, it just keeps telling me that like, get your shit together, Kandis, and do more stuff, because that's really the message that I keep receiving is like, you're supposed to be here for some reason. And so you need to just keep digging further. How many more people can you help? What else can you do? Because otherwise, I'd be taken away. And there's obviously a reason that I keep going through these experiences. There's a reason for it. And I think I learn something new every time. You have to be open to obviously learning that. But I think every single time it's a learning opportunity, and it encourages me more and more to like dig into how can I help people? How can I spread betterness? That's a good word in the world, but you know what I mean, right? Spread better things in the world. And so for me, it's not about luck. If I feel like, obviously I have something else to do. So I'm not going anywhere yet.
Okay. So that brings us like this is not a difficult, but it's a hard, like a physically hard transition to go from these experiences that you've had into talking about like business and what you do. But I told you said something that bridged a gap for me, which is I see you in your sales advisor role, right? Like I see you helping business owners and people who are trying to create and scale their businesses and change their lives. I see you lead them through such thoughtful questions. You ask them about their own business and their motivation and what's holding them back. Then you guide them to the questions they can ask their audience as they're trying to sell. So the bridge for me is, okay, Kandis comes from a place where she's constantly curious and non-judgmental and is genuinely trying to understand the perspective and the experiences. Like that was next level unlocked when you were sharing these stories. But I'd love to hear more about when you're talking with somebody about their business or their offer and you're connecting with them and empowering them to be better at selling, what are some of the common things you're seeing that people can improve upon? I don't want to say that they're doing wrong, but what are some of the things where you see, wow, this is a pattern that I see in people trying to sell and I want to teach them X?
Yeah. And also, I just want to say before we go in there, could you like mark that question so that I don't forget it? Because I'll forget it. But
yes,
when you were kind of saying like seeing that connection, it's like, it is really interesting because I've gone through sort of different iterations of how to help people and what to do. And like, I find particularly in sales, which is something I've done for my entire life, is just be in sales. And I think a large part of that is curiosity, like you're saying, right? It's just being curious about people's situations. But also, I think to be really good at sales, and this kind of leads into your question, but like to be really good at sales, we need to have like this whole trifecta of things going on, right? Like we need to be able to be the master of our own energy at all times, because if we come in hot or if we come in cold, right, that's going to be reflected, right? We have to be a master of energy. We have to be curious. We have to ask the right questions, right? It is very like sales is psychology, right? If you want to be really good at sales, you need to be more curious about the psychology. Now, I had somebody the other day say like, but I don't know anything about psychology. I'm like, that's okay. I can share with you very specific questions and way to dig in, right? Like you don't need to be, big into psychology. And like I've studied the applied mindfulness and all of that at the University of Toronto. I've gone on meditation retreats. Like I learn how to do all of these things separately, but it's such a cool place to bring it in. And I think my favorite thing about it is that by helping others do better at sales, I'm helping them live out their dream. Like you want to build this business and you want to help people and you want to touch all these other people's lives. And by me showing you these like little tactics and things that we can do, like it's just so amazing. And I feel like my doing this, and it was somebody actually who commented in our group recently who was like, you're touching so many people through touching me to learn sales, right? And to me, like what I was saying is I just like every time that I get hit with let's hope it's the last one, a near-death experience, like I don't really want anymore.
I'm knocking on all the wood, throwing salt. I don't even know. There's going to be sage. I'm burning candles. All of it is for you, Kandis.
Lessons learned. Lessons learned. Okay. Oh my God. Yeah. But it just like helping people on the exponential level just like fills me up. Right. And I think that this kind of comes back to when we're looking at sales, that is really the number one thing that needs to happen from your perspective as well. Right. When I'm working with clients who are learning to sell better, oftentimes people come into a sales conversation like, this is about me and what I have to offer, and I'm going to tell you about it, and we're going to go through these things. Whereas a sales conversation, like I don't even think about what I'm selling for the first 70% of the call. I'm not talking about me. I'm not talking about what I'm selling. I don't even want to get there. What I'm trying to learn about is who you are. What are your desires? What are your fears? What's holding you back? How could I possibly maybe help you in the future? And when we shift from this idea, right, it's an energetic shift, right? It's like, hey, I'm going to tell you about this thing and I'm on a sales call, so I'm on stage. And that's how often people feel. It's like you're on stage for a show and tell. I'm going to tell you all about my offer, all the things that are going on. I'm going to tell you about all this stuff. And instead, you're not on stage. No. You're in the audience, and you need to put that other person on stage, and you need to ask them all about them. You need to be talking all about them. And when you come from this place of like, I'm going to help them, how can I help them? Then the whole dynamic of a sales call changes. They're going to trust you more. They're going to be more willing to, actually move forward with you. There's so many other things, and they're going to go deeper. They're going to tell you really why they're not buying, not just, it's too expensive. Because, it's too expensive is just like a super easy way to just get off a call with someone, right? You'll be able to get deeper.
Yeah, I love that too. And I feel like there's so much that I've learned from you, mostly just by osmosis. I mean, one of the downsides to you being an advisor in the same group I'm an advisor is that I don't always get to attend your calls. I don't get the benefit of showing up when you're doing a training. I'm often doing something over here in adjacent. And so I sometimes find myself with a lot of FOMO because we'll get into the Facebook group and clients will be tagging you like crazy. Kandis, that call changed my life. Kandis, that one shift you gave me helped me make X, number of sales. And so I feel like a lot of times it's just been such a joy for me to see your effect, almost the third person. But you were talking about so for example, we do an impact report in the community that you and I are in. And what really stood out for me this year when we were pulling some of those numbers is we would look at how much revenue have our clients brought in this year. But it's almost, the exponential factor that is sort of that ripple effect outside of that, I really can't measure because, many of the people that you're coaching on sales are also coaching people on sales, or like you said, are bringing courses and programs and offers that are helping them get healthy, be a better parent, be a better leader, like whatever their passion is. We've had such diverse and interesting people, but that's, to me, like you were just, talking about sort of that ripple effect. And I love that because it's not just about the sale. It really is about rooting in why are you doing what you're doing. And I've heard you, Kandis, in the most loving, like not calling people out, but calling them in. I've heard you call people in sometimes on their own BS, right? And it's like, hey, I hear what you're saying you want to do, and then I hear the way you're talking about it. Or I hear what you say you think you're offering, and then I hear the way you're talking about what it is. Those are dissonant. What does it feel like for you when you have to tell somebody, hey, the way that you are selling is not working and you need to make a change? Like, do you ever feel like angst about having to have some of that tough love with somebody?
I've always been this way. I was just talking to somebody about this the other day about my family dynamic, my like close family. So the four of us, right? They are very much hold everything inside, build resentment, and act out in ways that are not really, how we want to be acting. All three of them are like that. So I grew up in that household. Their birthdays are all within like a few days of each other.
Wow.
So they're all basically the same
The zodiac
person.
signs are all.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I'm just like, oh, boy. And I'm the only one outside of this whole dynamic, right? But I remember at 10 years old actually calling a family meeting and being like, look, this can't go on. Like, I'm 10 and you're all way older than me, but like, we can't keep doing this because you're mad at her and you're mad at this guy. And like, I was just like, I'm not dealing with this anymore, So, I mean, I don't actually feel too much tension because I also make sure that everybody knows I'm coming from a place of love, but I'm loving you more because I'm telling you what you need to know. If I hold back because I'm scared of telling you what you need to know, then I'm doing you a disservice, right? I need to just tell you point blank. And people that work with me at first sometimes can feel a little like, I'm known for, what do they call it? Tough love sometimes. But really, I'm just blunt because I also teach people you can't, like, when you're in sales, you can't make anything mean anything about you. Someone says no, don't make it mean anything. Someone says, oh, it's too expensive. Don't make it mean anything, right? You just have to just not let things, it's just a fact. Right now, they think that they can't afford it. Great. Let's work on that, right? We way too often get so into our emotions, like, oh, they said no. I actually asked in a group recently, another group that I was working with, and I was like, hey, so if somebody says no to your offer, what does that mean about you? Oh. And almost everyone responded with, I'm not good enough. My offer sucks. I'm never going to make it. I said, no, it means nothing about you. It means that they said no. That's all that it means, right? It just means that they said no. So if I tell you that you're not talking about what you think you're talking about, that's all it means. It doesn't mean I judge you. It doesn't mean I think anything, So I think you got to kind of look at it that way, right? Someone saying no to your offer does not mean that they don't like you or that your offer sucks or that you're a terrible person. It just means that they said no to your offer. And there's an element of sales where it's really important to be able to differentiate that. And that's where like the mindfulness training comes in too, right? It's like, how do we just separate what we think something means and what it actually means?
How does that apply when you're selling your own product? So I know that a lot of what we've talked about today is your role as an advisor, helping other people become better at sales, but you are yourself a salesperson. Do you have it? Are you able to apply your lessons and your knowledge to yourself in the same way? And the reason I ask is because what I am exceptionally good at doing for other people, I'm terrible at doing for myself. And I struggle with that. And I'm just wondering if that's the same for you, or is it all just like, this works?
It's interesting because I know what you're saying. Like, I can do this for other people, but for myself, I'm no good at it. I've been writing copy for people for like 12 years. When I try to write my own copy, I'm like, well, that's clearly awful, but I don't know how to change it, right? Like I get stuck and I'm like, I don't know what to do about that, right? Meanwhile, I'm getting paid to do this for other people, right?
Yes.
And I think oftentimes, some people have even said that to me. Oh, well, it's easier for you because you're not selling your own product, right? You're selling somebody else's product. And yes and no. So I only sell products that I fully believe in because I feel like my reputation and my karma is on the line. So I will not sell something that I don't 100% understand, know that it's going to work. And like, I will not do that. Right. So in that regard, in my own personal stuff, the part that I said was really interesting is that I was doing some other work like several years ago. And when I would get on a sales call to sell my stuff, I would get weird about it. And I would get really in my body and anxious, and I could feel things coming up in my chest and everything, right? Just like, oh, icky feelings. And when I switched what I was doing, like switched how I was kind of doing my program and switched what I was actually selling, it's literally easier for me because I feel so strongly that I can do this, that I don't have any fear about, I think most of the fear comes in, can I do this? Is this going to be valuable? Is this whatever? And so I think when people are having a really hard time really doing that, you need to do the work on, is this something that you truly feel that you can do? Is this something that you feel has a lot of value? And is this something that you can feel confident in moving forward? And if you can't say yes to all of those things, you may have a really viable, I know so many people who have like all these amazing testimonials and everybody's getting great results. And they're like, but I just don't think I can do it. I'm like, well, obviously you can, because 25 people just told you that you can, right? So that becomes an internal work, right? We got to figure out what's causing those blocks. Sometimes this is why I love, like being certified in like NLP and applied mindfulness and stuff, right? Sometimes we can work on, okay, what is actually causing that block? What's that belief behind that that's causing you to stop? But if you really it becomes about belief in yourself and confidence. So if you know that you can help people, and you're not going to help everyone, right? So if out of 25 people, 20 get amazing results, you got to go with that because you can't control everything that everybody does, right? But you have to have that confidence in what you do. And sometimes it's a tweak in what you're offering, and sometimes it's only about going inward, right? And finding that confidence.
Well, Kandis, you have lived, I know you're a cat person, so we'll say 9 lives. I truly hope
Please let me have at least one more. I'd like to have lived 8.
This one needs to just keep going and going and going. I love hearing all of the things you've done, but I just also know how much is still to come for you and from you. And I'm just really thankful for the universe putting you into my path. And I could not be more excited to see what you have coming out for your own offers in the next few years. We'll be sharing them. And I really appreciate you also just being so open and transparent about everything that you've experienced and how it has really, I'm really, really walking away from this conversation with my own level of perspective and appreciation for what every single day has, even when it's exceedingly hard, right? Like even when the days are hard, just what a gift it really is to still be here and to be resilient and surviving. So thank you for the reminder, and thanks for the conversation.
Amazing. Thank you. Yeah. And it was literally just my 40th birthday, and somebody said to me like, you're turning 40 so well. So many people get stressed out. I said, dude, I almost died 3 times. Like being here is amazing. Like, I'm just happy that I get to wake up every day and continue. And I've always said though, like every age is my favorite age because it's the age in which I'm alive. And it's the age in which I get to actually do things every day, and I get to make changes, and I can make my life better, and I can do things every single day that I want to do. And so I'm not one of these people that fears getting older. I celebrate the fact that I haven't left Earth yet, and have more opportunity to help. And honestly, Katy, like meeting you in real life, I know we've talked online for so long, we're working with this group, and then actually getting to meet you in real life, I was like, oh my gosh, if we lived close, we would be hanging out all the time.
Listen,
our late night chats.
The next international adventure you take, you just tell me when and where. I don't quite have the nomadic wanderlust personality that you do. I really am a homebody and I love routine. But for like with you, I'm there. You tell me when, where, and I will hop a plane. And you are somebody I would trust the process with completely and just like turn it over to whatever is supposed to happen. It's magic. And I also think like you and me and Sedona in 2024 with everyone else from the Elevate community. I just see us at a vortex. I see us like there is something happening right now in the universe for people that are willing to take bold action, that are defiant. I'm going to walk away with that word. Like that's really imprinted on me today.
Yes.
But yes, you are, my sister from another mister. I'm the voice of reason. You're the nomad. And I think that souls
together
are
we could do amazing things.
Yes. So if you're listening and you want to join us on this adventure, I'm sure Kandis will be selling a prepaid travel package for us in 2024. But Kandis, you're the best. I can't wait to see you in person again soon. And thanks again for sharing your story. I hope that ambulance isn't for you, by the way.
Sorry, I know. I live right next to a hospital.
No, it just makes me nervous when we're talking about your near-death experiences.
I think I moved here subconsciously because I'm so close to a hospital, just in case I try to die again.
That actually that makes me actually happier to know that you're just moments away from emergency care. I don't want you to need it. Promise me you'll take somewhat good care of yourself, but it's nice to know it's there. All right, Kandis, love you. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye. We packed so much into that conversation. And immediately after we stopped recording, I said to Kandis, oh my gosh, I didn't even remember to bring up the fact that you are the author of a book. The truth is, I don't think there is a single conversation where you could cover everything that Kandis has done and seen and experienced. And we didn't even really get into the heart of what she teaches from a sales perspective. So what I want you to do is I want you to connect with Kandis. She shares so many valuable tips on her Instagram page. She's at kandisjames.kj. Kandis is with a K. So kandisjames.kj. That's on Instagram. She shares incredible tips and insights. She is a wonderful coach, and you can learn about the opportunity to work with her through her Instagram page, or feel free to connect with me and we'd be happy to tell you more about her role and my role in Elevate, where again, Kandis and I are both advisors. I am so appreciative of everybody who comes on the show and really shares their vulnerable, transparent, funny, transformative, insert your adjective and superlative here, their story. And Kandis in particular really moved me with her ability to not just walk through what has been a difficult life at some points, but really take inspiration and joy, not just for herself, but motivation and defiance for all of us. So thank you as always for listening, and I hope to see you on the next episode of Hard Costs.